on the threshold. And when this is all clean, this says 3300 BC, so you know what time era you're entering. And when this is all done, it'll probably be in gold metallic paint so that it pops up. But this is the ancient gallery. You're entering ancient Mesopotamia. It's not finished, and we hope, as Rod said, we hope it'll be done soon. This is a reader rail, and this is just the proof of one of the items that'll go on the reader rail. I mean, it's going to be much larger than this. This was, check spelling.
Temporarily.
Yeah, well, it's just a proof. But anyways, this is the diorama, and in this ancient museum, we're covering 5 empires: the ancient Sumerians, the Akkadians, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, and the Neo-Babylonians. And the Neo-Babylonians are the Chaldeans. And they were the last empire before Cyrus the Great from Persia came into Mesopotamia. And the greatest of the Neo-Babylonian kings is Nebuchadnezzar. If nothing else, this project has taught me how to spell Nebuchadnezzar. I got that down. So this is in southern Iraq, down by Kuwait, and the city of Basra. Nasiriyah?
We call it Ur.
And so this is Sumerian, and you see the mud huts that the people lived in. And behind it is the city of Ur and the ziggurat of Ur. So this teaches the story of from settlements to the creation of cities, when people began to live together in units and start having governments and laws and so forth. And in these cases of latrines are artifacts. Some are replicas and some are actual artifacts, like this one in the center and that one, that we bought from antiquities dealers. So like this envelope would have contained a smaller cuneiform tablet, and it's really like an invoice. These are 30 donkeys, 20...
Hi.
Hi, this is Francis Borgi. He's the chairman of our board of directors.
Hi. Hello.
Thanks for having me.
How you doing, sir? Hello.
Go ahead.
And so we might say like 30 donkeys, 50 bushels of wheat, and so what somebody bought and what the cost was. So this tablet would be put into this envelope and then sealed and then cracked open when the goods were delivered. So, just to show that there was commerce going on in ancient times. And there are other artifacts that go on in all the different cases. This is Hammurabi's Code of Laws. We purchased this from the Louvre. This is an authentic replica. The actual Code of Laws is in France, and they cast it and they sell it to museums. So if you were to go to the Oriental Institute in Chicago, there's one in the San Francisco area. It's the same one that we have here from the same cast. On the background, in this curved area, they photographed this, and they're creating a wallpaper that will fit into that curve, so you actually will see in large cuneiform writing. And there is a monitor that will be here that will tell you some of the laws. Like we chose a commercial law, a family law, a criminal law. We chose 4 different kinds of laws. But there are about 280 laws. And Hammurabi didn't create them, he codified them. He took laws from different times in history and put them into a code that could be easily followed and that their judges would follow. The drapery was chosen by our architects. The architects for the whole project are from New York, but our local architect is Victor Saroki, who has an office in Birmingham. And the color of the fabric for the drapery was chosen to represent the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. So that color scheme, and if the vents are blowing, you actually get that flowing feeling. On this wall, covering the entire wall, it will be a large graphic panel of an overview of the ancient city of Babylon. We bought it from a documentary filmmaker from Germany who was who did do a film on Babylon and created a scale model, and we bought one of the stills. So actually, as you first walk in, what you actually will see is the city of Babylon. In this cabinet, we're showing, this is the Neo-Babylonian or Chaldean period. And this is the processional way that was built by Nebuchadnezzar. So you have the lions and you have the dragon Marduk. And what they would do at night is they would to protect the city, and it was dedicated to the goddess Ishtar, who was the goddess of fertility. They would put torches by the lions, so as the flames were flickering, you would think that the animals were alive, and the enemy would be afraid to attack the city because beasts were protecting it. And the palm volutes, the background, are the palm volutes that Nebuchadnezzar had in his throne room. Behind his throne, he had a mosaic of the palms because Iraq, well, modern day Iraq or Mesopotamia, one of their export crops is dates. And in fact, they may be number one in the world for date.
They were before what happened to Iraq, you know.
Was number one.
Was it number one?
Was
Okay.
number one, not
Yes, and we had the most palm trees in the whole world,
Yeah.
and also the best dates in the whole world. We're talking now 50, 60 years ago.
Wow.
Until we even here, we start getting them, you know, we see them, of course, in Arizona and California, you know, in Palm Springs
Springs.
and all those, you know, you see
Yeah.
those kind of dates that they were actually planted there, here in this country. And of course, Saudi Arabia imported a lot of them, and they are planting them also.
On the table are other artifacts that will actually be mounted on the steel metal structures that you have here. There's more, and there will also be large text panels that describe each of the empires and math, medicine, the legal system, all throughout the different empires in ancient Mesopotamia. So this gallery really, this is the biggest of the 5 galleries, and it's ancient Mesopotamia and its various empires. When you come, we're going to walk into the Faith and Church Gallery. So the date, somewhere down there, says 33 AD. So you're putting it in the time of Christ. And when you walk into the Faith and Church Gallery, you're going to be walking under the Ishtar Gate. So feel very important. This is the Faith and Church Gallery, and it's made to the vaulted ceiling so that you feel like you're in a sacred space. And in here, this is a baptismal font that will actually go in the center, and they haven't positioned it yet because it would be in the way of everything else they're doing. But it was modeled after a font from a church in Mosul, from a Chaldean St. Peter's or Mar Shamoun church in Mosul. And there'll be big graphic panels and artifacts that tell you how we were converted to Christianity by St. Thomas the Apostle and his followers on his way to India and China. And then 2 of his followers, Saint Aday and Saint Mari, stayed and continued the conversion. And so you'll see behind that vitrine is a book in Aramaic. We actually got that from one of our bishops. But that book contains all of the readings, like the epistles and gospels, for the Sunday readings during a liturgical year. But it's all in Aramaic, which is a Semitic language. Pardon?
It's handwritten.
Handwritten, oh, okay. When you walk into this gallery, you are in 1890. This is the Village Gallery. And this gallery is about the villages in northern Iraq, in the Nineveh Plain. And there are over 100. I think we started typing up the names of the villages, and we came at least to 130. I mean, there were some larger than others. But actually, I was born and raised in Detroit. So if some of the gentlemen who are actually from the village care to speak, but what we have is a gentleman, is a male life-size figure of a man in the farm fields. Wheat and barley, lentils were main crops.
Meriwether. Wally.
Hi,
Gentlemen,
Wally.
this is Mr.
I know
Wally.
Wally, I know Wally.
He's the president and founder of the only TV station we have here in the metropolitan area, MEA.
Yes.
And Wally is taking some shots at this event.
Okay,
He wants to show the community the appreciation
sure.
that we have for Country Fresh. So say hello to Wally.
Hi,
Hi,
Wally.
Wally, how you doing?
Back over there. He is the only TV, Middle Eastern TV in Michigan with the largest Chaldean and Arab community here. So when you advertise with Wally, you're gonna sell more milk and you're gonna more Chaldeans.
Public service announcement.
The Chaldeans never stop trying. We are business people to the core. Just a funny story about the wheat fields. When we went to the fabricator, the company building the museum is from Bowling Green, Ohio. And when we told them we had farm fields, the gentleman said, "Oh, we've got great corn. We can make you beautiful looking corn." And I said, "We had wheat." And he said, "But we have good corn." And I said, "This isn't Nebraska. I mean, we are not corn huskers." And so with several conversations to convince him, they were wheat fields, and you see the grain jars. And this is, and I may mispronounce it, a buksha. I tried, Henny. I tried.
How well
I know,
he's
I tried.
trained.
Those are the best.
So he has some clothes and also his luncheon. Well, there wasn't brown bags or, and so that's how he carried his belongings to go to work.
And the woman behind you is
She's making bread.
bread, rolling out bread and then puts it in the tandoor, that oven. So it's that thin, crispy pita bread. And that would be a typical door, and we tried to show the village, more doors with the mural. You will not actually be able to walk into the house, but if you stand by the window, there will be media in the form of a Pepper's ghost. It's like a hologram, sort of like Star Wars, where the person is suspended out. And you'll see village actors, our own people. Actually, Hanna was one of them. All right. Doing domestic chores, like the woman actually making bread. Hanna, who plays the grandfather, is showing his grandson how to spin a top. If you look closely, there's a bird trap with a dead bird, because that's
How actually that was part of our food. I was born in this village. And I was raised there till I was 17 years old. Then I went to college. So that's, and this is the way it was. I mean, those, I used to use those and to get some birds. And there were people that was their job, and they will have like 20, 30 birds. They bring them to the market, and they will sell them for whatever, and that was part of their income. So that's those traps were real, and these are real, and of course we use them. Yeah, we did use those.
Okay.
when you walk into the next gallery, the year is 1933, because by 1933 there was actually an established Chaldean community in Detroit. Like my own father came in 1929, and we used to kid him and say, "Why did you come during the year of the Great Depression?" And he said, "I didn't know it was going to be a Great Depression." I mean,
My father came
yeah.
the same year.
Yeah.
We came together.
yeah, a lot of them came. We know that there was a Chaldean in America in 1889. Many came in the teens and 20s and 30s. A few went back and stayed back in Iraq, but others stayed here. Some went back to get married and bring their wives, which is what our parents did. But okay, so you're walking into Detroit in 1933, and we're going to cover different immigration periods. The pioneers, those who were here before 1939.
those who came after World War II, who were mostly men, who came educated students who had gone from the villages to Baghdad and became doctors, lawyers, teachers, engineers, a lot of engineers came to America. Then in the 1960s, the U.S. eliminated the quota laws that so many, like Germany could have so many people from Germany, Ireland could have so many people from Ireland. That was eliminated, so the Chaldeans, who had been here now for at least a generation and a half, started to send for their relatives and brought them to America. And then now we have the refugees. This is actually a working cash register that we had refurbished by NCR. We contacted General Foods in Minnesota, and they sent us high-definition copies of their packages as they were in the 30s. There'll be a radio here by Babe Ruth and Ty Cobb that will actually play a Tiger game from the 1930s as you walk past it. It's not the voice of Ernie Harwell. He wasn't the... If you have things, we'll take them, believe me. We will...
We'll see what we have, yeah.
Yeah, but that would be
You know,
great.
30s, 40s era, absolutely we would take them.
Okay.
Yeah. This will say Woodward Market backwards, and then a big graphic that we bought from the Detroit News or the Detroit Historical Society of Woodward back in the 30s with that vintage cars, so that you're in the store looking out on. Quickly, there is a specific reason why Detroit. They landed at Ellis Island or Boston. They came in the same ports anybody would have. But there were probably 3 reasons why Detroit. One is, like your dad,
That's my
we
dad.
went through Ellis Island, and Ford Motor Company was advertising on Ellis Island that if you come to Detroit, work in the Rouge plant, you will earn $5 a day. We actually bought a poster from the Henry, to tell that story. So that was one reason. They knew they could at least get a job and survive. A second reason is that already in Detroit, now that part I don't know why, but already in Detroit were Lebanese and Syrian people. Maybe they also came to Detroit because of
speak the
Ford
language.
Motor, and they spoke Arabic. They didn't speak Chaldean,
Yeah.
but they spoke
Yeah, but-
Arabic. So there was affinity, and so they figured if they came to Detroit, they at least would have fellow nearby Middle Eastern people that they could communicate with. And the third reason is proximity to Canada. Canada and the U.S. have different rules as to coming into the country. You might be able to get on Ellis Island and they did health screenings, and you might be rejected. Maybe you had cataracts, or the immigration officer could just say you're not coming in. But you might be able to get into Canada. And so you could have brothers or families, some members into the U.S., others into Canada, not the U.S., but if one lived in Windsor and one lived in Detroit, they could see each other. And by 1929, both the Ambassador Bridge and the tunnel were built. So that's why Detroit and not Chatham. This gallery that you're entering does not have a time threshold because this is today. And this entire gallery is primarily a media presentation. Come on down. There's going to be a world map showing, especially now because of the situation in Iraq with the refugees and the persecution of Christians. We have a map of the world showing where there are Chaldean communities throughout the world. A lot of them in Scandinavian countries today, like Sweden, because Sweden started accepting refugees. This is a portrait gallery of 20 of our pioneers. Anyone who was here before 1939. And we just arbitrarily just chose people. I mean, some were more prominent than others. Some were deacons in the church. Some were just quiet. We started to put up almost all men, and we said, no, we are, well, but anyways. So we did have some women, maybe, and so we decided, okay, the ratio of 5 to 1. We'll have 5 women, 15 men. So some of the grocers that will be here this evening, a lot of these are their fathers, their grandfathers, their great uncles. If you want to score big with Rod, that's his uncle. That's Asukathawa. And
Detroit have the largest Chaldean community?
outside of Iraq. Well, it used to be outside of,
Outside the Middle East, actually now in Iraq, they are decreasing.
we might be the largest now.
There used to be over 1 million, now they are maybe 250,000. There is over 200,000 here in Detroit. And we're growing because people are coming from there here. So, we might be even more than Iraq. I hope not. I hope things will quiet there, but we don't know.
There is largest one in the U.S. is the Detroit area. There is another large community, not as big as ours, in San Diego, and that was because a Chaldean man who came after World War II could speak Arabic, could speak Chaldean, knew English, he was college educated, came to America, came to Detroit, because that's where the Chaldeans were, but the U.S. Army Language School in Monterey, California, was looking for speakers of other languages, especially after World War II. I mean, we even used the Navajo Indians as to speak so that the Germans would not know the Navajo language, and some of you know the World War II history. And so he went to California and loved the climate because it was a lot closer to what he was used to in the Middle East. And the Chaldeans come by chain migration. Like my father came to America, then when he becomes a citizen, he petitions for his brother. And then when his brother becomes a citizen and then the wife starts sending for her family. So it's one link added to another link, added to another link, which is chain migration. So the same thing that happened in Detroit also happened in San Diego. There's also a community in Chicago. We have 2 parishes in Chicago that fall under our diocese. We are Catholic. We are the Chaldean Rite of the Catholic Church. So we are in full union with Rome. We are not Orthodox. This is our past. This is our future. And we want them looking at each other, that these are the people who brought us to America. These are the children who will continue our legacy. These were taken about 1.5 years ago. We had contacted each of the Chaldean churches and asked them to give us the names of 2 children, boy and a girl, roughly 5 to 12, 13. And so which is why the 2 exhibits face each other.
Done?
I'm done.
Good job, Mary. Very good job. Thank you
Too
very
long.
much.